Gearing changing in the War Within. Myth track now goes to 6 of 6 plus a new affix. Yes, Dratnos dropped a new video here about how the myth track has been buffed in the War Within. Let's see what the gearing changes look like here as we move forward.
Hello everybody, my name is Dratnos, and in today's video we've got a little bit of a two-part video. So first we're going to talk about the new myth track changes in War Within, and gearing and stuff, crafting, those kind of things. And then there's also some affix changes that'll be in the second half of this video. I'll try and remember to put some chapters or whatever down at the bottom so you can navigate to that if that's all you want to see. But up first we're going to talk about the myth track, which now had this tweet and Tettles had a video about earlier as well. And the basic idea of this is that right now the myth track goes up 4 slots. Right? There's myth 1 out of 4, 2 out of 4, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 4.
Right.
In War Within, it's going to go up to 6. So myth will go all the way up 6 steps. Hero will also stay where it is relatively too. So effectively, myth track has gotten sort of buffed in terms of how high it goes.
So hero track's the
hero
same.
track, and also relative to crafted gear. But it does mean that there's going to be much more weeks of needing aspect
grinding,
crests,
yeah.
or the whatever the new name is for it.
You know what? I'm good with this. I actually like it. I like that. I want a high-end player to be able to gear out at the highest level possible, and I do think that it's important for myth track gear to be better than crafted gear. I don't think they should be the same at all. I think when you're doing mythic level rating or doing high-end myth plus keys, you should have the best gear. You should, straight up. So I think this is pretty good change. Hero track stays the same, but myth increased to level 6
to
upgrades.
actually fully realize all the potential of any myth track gear that you get. It also means that now myth track gear is 13 eye levels better than hero track gear instead of 6, and it's 10 eye levels better than crafted gear instead of 3.
Yeah, that's good.
So that is,
I think that's a good thing.
A big deal.
Even though I'm not a mythic raider, I'm not. I'm not doing that high end of content, but I'm okay with the content going that high.
There are a couple different implications for this. First of all, if you were somebody who had access to myth track gear early in the patch, you can get it from M+ from your vault, but they did nerf the level that you have to do. You have to basically do 9s or 10s in War Within to get myth track gear, and I think it'll only be myth 1 out of 6 from your vault, unlike in Dragonflight where you could get up to myth 2 out of 4. So instead of needing 2 steps...
So what they're doing here, now it's starting to make sense as to why they did this. So you're getting the myth track gear at a lower level on the myth track, and it takes there's more levels to go up on the myth track. So they're basically trying to prolong the gearing process. That's what they're doing, let's be honest. They're trying to keep us on that hamster wheel a little bit longer in the season, keep us playing a little bit harder for a prolonged period of time, it's fine. It's fine. I'm cool with that. And like I said, I think this is good to have more separation between myth track gear and what heroic gear goes up to and crafted gear goes up to.
Each piece of gear you get from your vault to upgrade, you're going to need 5 to go from 1 to 6 instead of from 2 to 4. So you're going to need more than double the amount of crests to fully upgrade all of your gear across your whole character. If all the myth track gear you're getting is from your vault, is from those myth 1 out of 6 sources. Now, there are still myth 2 out of 6, 3 out of 6, 4 out of 6 sources from the raid, if you can do the raid and you can kill the later bosses there.
Oh, that's cool.
But if you can't do that, and if you're relying on just gearing your character up from M+, that time horizon has definitely gotten quite a lot longer. And if you're a raid player, it's also gotten longer.
Also a great change. I like this. I don't know. Some people don't like my opinion on this, but I always feel like the best gear should always come from raiding. I do. I've always felt like when Myth Plus tracks too close to rating in terms of gearing out, that's not a good thing. Or Myth Plus is better than rating. That's the worst. I never thought that was good. To me, end game content for World of Warcraft will always be and has always been rating. So it looks like now raiders are going to be rewarded for that. They're going to be now at the end of the day, if you gear out fully and you upgrade all the way, then Mythic Plus and rating is the same. But at least to start, raiders are going to be starting out at a better spot. Yeah, Myth Plus, screw rating. And I do 2 to 3 mythic bosses every tier, but I still don't consider myself a mythic raider because I've never killed end game bosses on a mythic level. But some people do like raiding or doing mythic plus. Well, you have the choice, right? And at the end of the day, you can still get to the same eye level. It's just going to take you longer in mythic plus than it will in raiding.
Longer because myth 4 out of 6 versus 4 out of 4 is still extra upgrading that you're going to have to do. So all characters are going to be spending more time getting geared and are going to hit their ceiling later, if at all, right? Obviously, there are a whole lot of players that never hit fully upgraded across their gear. And if you did get Mythtrack gear on your character, that is going to be even more far in the future.
Yeah.
If you're somebody who never had access to Mythtrack gear, this is sort of a relative nerf to you because you are, further item levels below
You're a
Mythtrack.
noob.
Mythtrack going to a higher item level
Say it,
does
Dranos.
nerf you a little bit. Although it is worth noting that if you are somebody who only does M+, and you're relying on getting all your Mythtrack gear out of M+, I don't think it's right to think about this as that big of a nerf because realistically, the raid players are going to be also still upgrading for so long, right? Like it's like, yeah, it's going to take you, weeks and weeks of vaults before you've got Mythtrack in all your slots. But it's also going to take the raid players longer to fully upgrade all their stuff. So raid players will still be done upgrading before M+ players. They'll be done getting Mythtrack in every slot before M+ players. And some of those Mythtrack slots that they get will be Myth 2, Myth 3, Myth 4.
Okay.
But they will at least, if you are a Mythic Plus only player, and you don't get turbo unlucky, and you hopefully you find a Mythtrack weapon in one of the first few weeks, that's obviously like a really big deal.
That's right.
Then it's not going to be that. Like, it's a nerf compared to the raid players. Well, I should say compared to the players that raid and do M+. That's always the comparison.
True. I
here,
mean,
'cause
yeah.
if you were only raiding, it would also be that you'd be missing a lot of
That's the truth. Most people do a lot of both. I mean, if you're a true gear out Andy, you're gonna do Mythic Plus and raiding, and it looks like the optimal way will be to do raid, get the Mythtrack gear from raid, and then upgrade it through Mythic Plus because you could just grind those out and get those badges really quick. That's going to be the best way to gear out. Which is, like, again, I said, fine. Yeah, that's great. I think this is actually a good change. Best gear should be from World Quests. Give us Titan Forging back so I can get gear equivalent to Mythic Raid. I miss BFA times. Havoom, I feel like that is a very, very much a minority opinion right there. Yeah, Mythic World Quest giving best gear. Titan Forging was fun when it worked for you, and it sucked when it worked against you. That's for sure.
Crest and stuff as well. But either way, that's one ramification of this change. The other ramification here is that the crafted items are going to suck. Crafted items, if you have access to Mythtrack gear, crafted items now being 10 item levels below that it's going to feel really bad, especially if it's still correct to wear 2 embellishments. You're going to want to wear your embellishments. Like, it's already true that you want to put your embellishments on bracers and belt and stuff, these low stat budget slots, because it's a lower loss, because it's, in Dragonflight or whatever, those are 525 and it's 528 in the other slots, and you'd rather have 528 in the higher stat budget slots because that gives you more power. But when that is effectively 528 versus 518, or I guess 535 versus 525 would be a more accurate comparison to our current item level, that is going to feel way worse and might still be worth, I don't know, embellishments may or may not be worth actually still including in a full BIS loadout. They're slightly weaker than they are in Dragonflight as well, so I'm not 100% sure. But either way, that strikes me as a something that shouldn't be that way. Like, that it feels icky.
Yeah.
So what are my takes on this overall? I think for main character gearing, this is probably okay. I do think that M+ only players are fair.
They're not going to like it.
Being somewhat upset about this.
Yeah.
I think that one thing that they could do, so I don't know, pivoting out of complaining mode to there are a couple of things that I think they could do to make this go down a little bit easier. First of all, I think they should buff the crafted items. Crafted items shouldn't be that far below the fully upgraded stuff.
I disagree. I don't like crafted. Look, here's the thing. Let's be honest, guys. Crafted items is a gateway to being able to pay to win. That's honestly, I don't like crafting. A lot of reasons why I don't like crafting is because I feel like people can buy gold, people can buy resources, and then people can buy gear. And I don't think that should ever come close to what rating or Myth Plus gear should be. I don't. I think it's fine. You want to backfill some stuff. You want to maybe get that one best in slot piece of crafted gear. But yeah, Kek, okay, no, it's the truth. I personally don't like crafting, and I guarantee you, part of the motivation behind the rework of crafting and everything that's gone into crafting has been WoW tokens. I guarantee it. Yeah, why? Like, if I could get in to those meetings that happened when they decided we're going to revamp the entire crafting system, I promise you WoW tokens was on that board. It's the truth. And I understand there's things that you need from the game itself to be able to craft certain things, but there's still money involved at the end of the day. There's still gold involved when it comes to crafting. That's always been the case. Yeah, you're a great example. You have great gear. Can't even time a 10. I've timed many 10s. Thank you very much. But at the end of the day, I've always appreciated the fact that I feel like the best gear should come from rating, and it looks like that's what's going to happen here. Now, I will say with the Myth Track, Mythic Plus, I wonder if the Vault at least will give you like Myth Plus gear that Myth Track gear that could be maybe at a 2 or a, or a 3 at first. We'll have to see how that all plays out. But at the end of the day, everybody knows the best way to gear out is to raid and do Mythic Plus at the same time. That's the truth, and that this doesn't change that.
I think that would be good. Second of all, I think that so now's point in this tweet is basically like, look, this has doubled the amount of runs that it's going to take me to fully gear a character with all the crests that I'm going to need to upgrade, and I think that's a fair criticism as well. Particularly like if you're imagining it's like November, you roll up a fresh alt, the crest cap or whatever is effectively irrelevant at this point, but you just are looking at it and you're like, wow, I need to farm 1,000 aspect crests, right, so that I can fully upgrade all my gear. Like, that is a daunting prospect at 12 crests per timed key.
That doesn't feel good.
So I think that a few things they should consider doing are they should make it, first of all, this is the one that I think is least negotiable, and they should do yesterday. They should have done this a long time ago. You shouldn't lose crests when you deplete a key, or if you do, it shouldn't be anywhere close to as harsh as going from 12 to 5. That to me seems really, really bad.
Agreed.
It encourages you to just do keys at the level that you know you can always time, rather than doing the more fun keys.
Yeah, it also encourages people to leave a key if they're not going to get timed. Like, even if you're at the last boss, like, they'll just fucking bail. That's what it encourages.
Slightly riskier level where you might deplete them. If you deplete a key, it's already by definition taking you longer anyways. So your crests per hour are already worse, but going from 12 to 5 is just so brutal that I think that is really unfortunate, and they should very much rethink that.
50% longer to gear. I mean, the truth is, we've already seen it in the last couple seasons, Monarch. I've seen it in the raids when we invite people. There are certainly a decent number of people that like gear out within the first couple weeks of the season. Like they're like max gear in a month. It's crazy how fast people do it. Now, should Blizzard tune shit because of the crazy, insane people who run things really quickly? No, but it does benefit them to prolong the gearing process for everybody. It just keeps everybody playing throughout the season a little bit longer.
So that one,
I understand
that's
why they're doing
agnostic to all the other complaints here. That one they should just do, whether or not you agree with me on any of this other stuff. I think that's the one I feel most sure about. The other stuff I think they should consider speeding up crest gain later in the patch. There are a couple different ways you could do this. You could just, like, every week, you could just start adding an extra crest to each raid boss and to each key that you do. So, for the first month or whatever, sure, it can be 12 crests per key, and then 13 on November 1st, and 14 on November 8th, and 15 per key on November 15th or whatever. You do that, all of a sudden the amount of runs needed starts dropping down as players are considering making alts later in the patch, or playing an alt later in the patch.
Yeah,
I think that could go.
It does hurt altaholics a little bit. I agree. And one thing that's not warband bound is crests. You can't trade those across your characters, so it's going to take longer. But again, I mean, somebody who wants to play an alt, they're going to be playing into the season, deeper into the season now, which is, it behooves Blizzard to do that.
Or you could instead gate that.
It is unfriendly to
some
alts.
Warband achievements.
I don't disagree with that.
If you get one character to item level 635 or whatever, then you unlock account-wide faster crest gain. Something like that, I think, could be another way of implementing that. Or maybe it's like, that achievement where it's like, hey, you've outgrown Drake's crests. Now any Drake's crests on your other characters are doubled or times 150% or whatever. And same for worms and aspects, which again, those crests are changing name in War Within, but I'm going to keep using those until they come out because that's what everybody's familiar with.
Of course they're going to change the names.
Yeah, and then the other thing I think they should maybe consider is I think that getting Myth Track End of Dungeon later in the patch should also maybe be an option. This expansion comes with a new feature where basically 12 and higher keys have like a giga difficulty affix, but then they lose the affixes that change week to week. And I think it could make sense
Right.
if, say, again, starting in October or November or something, so that it doesn't impact the early game gear grind and make this like a dominating strategy for gearing up characters early in the patch. Making it so that 12 or higher keys drop myth track gear end of dungeon, starting,
I think that's a
again,
good
some
idea.
point midway through the patch. Could go a long way towards making this not feel so daunting for M plussers,
Yeah.
and also mitigate some of that where it's like, hey, I haven't seen a weapon from my Great Vault at all for, if you don't see a weapon from your Great Vault for the first 6 Great Vaults you open, at least starting on the 7th week, that you can farm it yourself if you can do those really hard keys, which, again, Mythtrack is, like, I think Mythtrack getting buffed isn't inherently bad. It's, you get it from really hard content. They're
Yeah.
making it so that you have to do the harder content in M+, like harder than
Right.
Dragonflight to get it.
Right.
You have to do Mythic Raid if you want to get it from Raid as well. I think that's fair. I think, Mythtrack being an incentive to go and do that really hard content does make some sense. But I think given that it's that much better than Hero Track, maybe making it a little bit more obtainable for M plussers would be good. It would also help kind of even out, like, I'm just imagining that, what classes it's kind of easy to roll up is going to be, if you tell me, like, hey, you're going to roll up a class that has a good weapon and a good trinket from the first 2 bosses of the raid that you can pug on Mythic, versus the last 2 bosses on the raid that you can't.
That's true. That kind of RNG does help a lot in terms of which boss drops your
that
stuff.
decides what class you roll up as an alt has always been a big thing that I hate whenever that's a consideration, which has in the past sometimes
I agree.
been a thing.
That's not good.
Those are my thoughts on the myth track change and the crafters item change and stuff like that. Let me know what you think in the comments below. But let's move on to the second part of this video, which is we've got some M plus affix changes coming in this week's beta build.
Yes.
So continuing the theme of Xal'atath's Bargain.
And by the way, let's be honest with ourselves. Most people are still going to gear out through Mythic Plus. Most people are not killing endgame Mythic level raid bosses. So the gear, for the most part, is still going to come from Mythic Plus. The only difference is you're just going to take a little bit longer to grind out those levels, because you're going up 6 levels now instead of what a raider would be doing, which is probably 4 or 3, because they're starting at a 2 or a 3 on that myth track. So at the end of the day, who's this affect? It just buffs things a little bit more for the Mythic Raiders, and it makes things take a little bit longer for those people grinding keys.
There's a new affix to beta this week.
But you're not going to feel that far behind, because most people are not Mythic raiding at that high of a level.
Bargain Oblivion. While in combat, Xal'atath manifests crystals from the void that can be absorbed by enemies or players. They spawn
I'll
near
do a 12
enemies,
in 2
move
seconds.
towards them
All right.
until they're absorbed by
Easy.
players or collide with the enemy. Players that absorb these void crystals gain increased mastery and leech.
Love
Sweet.
it.
It doesn't actually say what happens when they hit the enemies. It doesn't say if they like
Interesting. So Kiss Curse, man. That's the theme of all these affixes lately, and I freaking love that.
explode or give the enemies mastery would be weird, but leech
Move
or
down here.
damage or a shield or something. I assume it'll do something like that. But this seems like a pretty cool little affix.
Yeah, I like it.
Movement based, right? Not something that is inherently going to cause you problems. You don't have to do any extra damage. You just have to do some extra movement to soak these things. Seems like a really pretty fun affix. Mastery and leech also pretty fun stats.
Yeah, cool.
Getting some leech on some hard pulls could actually be really sweet for some of these pulls in some of the dungeons and some bosses as well. So I think this is a really cool affix. They're also nerfing Voidbound, which is really good. This affix was, I think, a little bit of an outlier in terms of how difficult and annoying it was, and they're nerfing both its difficulty and its annoyingness here. So Void
Great.
Emissaries now follow the tank player after being summoned. Great. Their health has been adjusted, and its health no longer scales with Fortified.
That's
Double
good.
great, as long as adjusted here means nerfed and not buffed.
Right.
Dark Prayer now grants 5% damage to all enemies in combat every 2 seconds, adjusted from 10% every 3 seconds. So this is 50% less, although it will start ramping, I guess, a little bit faster.
It'll tick faster, yeah.
But still, that is nice, right? 5 every 2, down from 10 every 3, right? So this is 10 every 4, I guess, instead of 10 every 3, so it's a third less. Dark Prayer now persists if the channel finishes without the Void Emissary being defeated, so you definitely need to kill the Void Emissary.
Gotta kill him.
But Blessing from Beyond now grants cooldown reduction in addition to crit chance. Again, cooldown reduction is an inherently fun stat.
Heck yeah,
This
that's a lot
is
of fun. More
something that will
lusts,
make this affix
more popping off, more, using your best part of your rotation. I love that.
fun to play with, and I think that is cool. I think this is sweet. So this new affix looks cool. Obviously, not having played it, beta isn't up right now. And Voidbound also, I think, is being moved in a good direction from being an affix that was kind of reminiscent to some of the annoyingness of other older affixes that have gotten taken away. I think they're nerfing it in a very good way here, and adding the cooldown reduction here, I think, yeah, is phenomenal. So.
By the way, they did release these stats. I believe it was like 3% mastery, 1% leech, and the players, if it gets to the actual mob, it's a 10% damage reduction on them. We just talked about these not too long ago. They did release the actual numbers for Oblivion.
M plus, I don't know. It looks like it's gonna be fun. The new Xal'atath affixes seem sweet. They have been kind of sweet to play with. You can still get owned on them, on some of them, like the one with all the orbs. If you just don't have an AOE CC up for it, that can be bad.
Yeah, I have it right here.
But I think that they're in a really good place already compared to all previous M plus affixes. So
yeah, 2% mastery.
I think M plus is pretty
leech.
exciting from that perspective. I will say
That's what it is.
The 15-second death penalty thing instead of 5 seconds, kind of a bummer. That one, I feel like deaths are already very punishing, and
Yeah.
Punishing them more, I'm not sure is the right move. And then also, of course, the myth track, hero track stuff that we talked about in the start of this video is very relevant for M plus. So again, let me know what you think of all this. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Great video. Yeah, interesting stuff. I've always been a fan of myth track gear. The best gear coming from Raid. That's just how I've always felt it should be. So I don't hate these changes, and I do see exactly what Blizzard's trying to do with the changes. They're just trying to prolong the gearing process. That's exactly what they're trying to do, and it's going to work. Yeah, they're going to be able to do that. So nice video from Dratnos there. Check it out. I'll put it in the chat.